This week's Parsha, Parshat Tzav, is one of those Parshiyot that falls on different times of the year depending on whether it's a leap year or not. Of course, there are some Parshiyot that always fall in particular time period. For instance, we always read Parshat Bamidbar before Shavuot. Very rarely there is one more Parsha before Shavuot. Parshat Dvarim is always read before Tisha B'Av, before the 9th of Av. Parshat Nitzavim is always read before Rosh Hashanah. All of these are specific rules that have various types of hints, and it's the whole cycle of Torah reading in one year. It was not always the custom everywhere. We know that there were customs to read the Torah in 3 years, 3-year cycle of reading, or 3.5 years, but whatever the case may be, our current accepted way of reading the entire Torah in 1 year has a lot of interesting hints and a lot of interesting coincidences that specifically which Parsha falls when. For example, the ideas of Tisha B'Av, the day of our greatest rebuke, when our temples were destroyed, both of our temples were destroyed. So the week before we read the beginning of the Tochecha of rebuke that Moshe started. And even the word Eicha, the book we read on the 9th of Av, the Lamentations, is hinted in that Eicha Eisa Levadi, right? Moshe also says the word Eicha. Before Shavuot, we always read at least one Parsha after the curses of the end of the book of Vayikra in Parshat Bechukotai. The Talmud tells us that. That's why there's Parshat Bamidbar before Shavuot. Before the Rosh Hashanah, we read Parshat Nitzavim, so that there will be at least one Parsha after the curses of the book of Dvarim in the Parshat Kitavo. All of this is in the Talmud in Masechet Megillah. Nitzavim, by the way, hints again to the idea of Rosh Hashanah. Even the word shofar, there is one verse in the entire Torah where the same first letters of 4 consecutive words spell shofar. So at any rate, all of these are specifically made a certain way that some Parsha will fall before some holiday or at a specific time. But since some years we have a whole extra month, therefore around this time of the year there are differences depending on whether the year is leap or not. So this year we have 2 others, we have a leap year, and therefore Parshat Tzav is read right after Purim. Had it been that the year would be regular year, Parshat Tzav would be Shabbat HaGadol, the week before, the Shabbat before Pesach starts. So when Tzav is Shabbat HaGadol, I think it actually, there is a great hint for it. It's most of the years that Tzav is on Shabbat HaGadol. And that this is the Parsha in the Torah from which we can learn certain laws of kashering our vessels. Of course, right before Pesach, everybody's kashering vessels for Pesach. And the laws of this is learned from certain verses in our Parsha that if a Kohen, for instance, Kohanim used to eat parts of Korban Chatat and other Korbanot, and it had to be eaten for a certain time period, only for 1 day and the coming night. And after that, whatever is left from that Korban had to be burned. It's called notar, whatever is left from the Korban. So the Torah says that if it was cooked in a clay vessel, the vessel has to be destroyed, has to be broken, because there's no way to kasher a clay vessel. So that's one law we learn from here. It absorbs so much of the food, of the taste of the food, that you could only destroy it, you could only break it. On the other hand, it says if the Kohen cooks in a vessel from copper, and the commentators say other metals are also included. But copper, of course, was the common vessel at that time. That absorbs much less than clay, and there is a way to kasher it. And the way to kasher it is, of course, what we call today hagala. That is, we boil hot water in the vessel. The vessel has to be purged with hot water. That's what the kashering is, because it absorbed through hot water when you were cooking something in a vessel with hot water, with boiling water. So now you're kashering it the same exact way. Kibolea ken polet. The taste is taken away the same way as it was absorbed. And of course, the laws of kashrut are far more complex and detailed, but this is just a general law which is learned directly from the verses of the Torah. And also, it's afterwards the cold water is poured on it in the temple case, and we do that too customarily, even though it's not clear the water level is for regular vessels that are not temple vessels, to what the level of this custom is, why we pour cold water afterwards, but it's still done. So first purging with hot water and then pouring cold water over it. So what's interesting is that today some researchers, including some modern Orthodox rabbis, found that the many metals that are used today in customary production don't really absorb much. They absorb very, very little taste. Really minimal, very, very small percentage of the food gets absorbed in the vessel itself. Because of course our metal is very different. Steel, for instance, and other types of metal that exist today, it's not really similar to copper or even iron that used to exist thousands of years ago. It's a relatively new technology. About maybe 100 or something, more than 100 years ago, they started producing very, very strong metal. But until then, the metal was even iron. It's not really such a strong metal if it's not if it doesn't go through the process that makes it steel. So the question is, do these laws still apply today? So some rabbis say yes, the customary laws still apply today, and therefore any vessel which was used for cooking something not kosher has to be purged in the same way, and any vessel that you want to use for Pesach has to be kashered exactly the same way. But there are other rabbis who are somewhat more lenient, at least in certain cases. We know that the Sephardi Jews, at least the mainstream opinion by Sephardi poskim, is that glass can be used for both milk and meat separately. Not at the same time, of course, but if you cook something in a glass vessel, not every glass, of course, can withstand fire, but we're talking about the type of glass. There are glass vessels that you could put on top of the fire. So if you cooked, let's say, milk in a glass vessel and you wash that vessel, you could use it later for meat, according to some Sephardi poskim. And the reason is that, according to them, the glass does not absorb much. Now, Ashkenazim don't follow that. But we could at least learn from all this that there could exist some materials that don't absorb. The question, the difference between Ashkenazim and Sephardim is specifically regarding glass. Does it absorb or not? So some modern Orthodox poskim say that, therefore, if we could prove that today certain types of metal do not absorb much, only very, very minimal is absorbed. Therefore, it wouldn't need actual kashering. If somebody cooked meat, for instance, in a vessel, it wouldn't need to kasher it in order to cook milk in the same vessel. You just have to wash it. Most poskim, especially Haredi poskim, do not allow that much, but even a lot of them do at least consider the kind of what they call siruf, meaning when there are many reasons a certain rabbi has, and some of them are not forceful enough, not strong enough to rely on, but together with all the logic, you could rely on them. So the kind of idea here is that if, for instance, there are already reasons to be lenient for traditional reasons too, you may mitzaref, you can add also an additional reasoning that regular metal parts today do not really absorb much. So together with, when there are additional reasons to be lenient, maybe one could be more lenient today because of this reason, at least mitzaref it to other reasons. And I, of course, don't want to specifically bring any examples here. In every specific case, we ask a rabbi, but this is just a general introduction to the topic that may be interesting to some people. And on this, I'm going to end for today. And if you like this video, please press like and please subscribe to our channel.